Hello everybody! Welcome. Here's Kevin. We're going to talk to him today about his first week out with his trainer after he finished orientation at Werner Enterprises. So Kevin, hey, how was your first week out with your trainer?
So week one started on St. Paddy's Day. So I wore a Irish t-shirt.
Yeah,
and
because you're a Sloan, which is Irish.
We went to the terminal at the appointed time. I got an email and I got a message from the company saying I was paired with a trainer and he would be arriving at this time at the terminal and be there and be ready to go. So I had a bag packed, I had a bag of clothes, and I had a bag of food, and I had my briefcase with like a laptop and notebooks and
Paperwork,
map.
all your paperwork.
You have to bring your medical certificate, your long form and your wallet card. And there was some stuff from the orientation training that I wanted to bring along, tutorial stuff on backing and inspections and stuff like that. So I had my briefcase as well. So we got there and found him, and he took me over to the truck, and Tanya brought the car over so that I didn't have to carry all that stuff back and forth. And he showed me the truck, showed me the sleeper. He says, you're in the top bunk, I got the bottom bunk, but when the truck is moving, you can use the bottom bunk. And I got two cabinets on one side behind the driver. So one was a tall cabinet and then a smaller one up above. And in the top bunk, there are trays above all the cabinets, so you have a couple extra places to store things loose, like, if you want things handy when you're in your bunk. But basically, your duffel bag with all your clothes goes at the end of the bunk. So where you're sleeping, it's kind of up against your feet.
So that would be awkward for somebody who's how tall, how wide, how long is that bed?
If you're that tall, you'd put it beside you, and then you wouldn't have as much.
Yeah, but it's really narrow too.
Hip room. Yeah, it's basically a twin.
And how long is it? Like the width of the actual truck?
The whole width. So it's more than 7 feet, I think, that bunk.
Okay.
So
all
it's,
right. So that's pretty
plenty long enough. And in the cabinets, I used I threw in my bulkier clothes and my food, because I brought a lot of food along, because I didn't want to be eating fast food every time we stopped somewhere, and it just doesn't sit well with me.
Yep.
I did indulge a couple of times though, but
by indulge you mean what do you consider indulging?
Like if I get to a truck stop and I'm really hungry and I don't want the stuff, a cold bag of pre-cooked rice or some sauerkraut or some oatmeal, I'll go in there and say, give me a egg sandwich if it's early in the day, and if it's late in the day, I'll have a Subway, a turkey sub, so it's like a fresh made sandwich with a lot of vegetables.
Yeah.
Once or twice I had like a grilled chicken.
All right, so still bun. Nothing like totally crazy.
No, I don't eat the French. I don't eat the French fries or the breaded stuff or the greasy stuff.
Yeah. Okay, but that's not bad.
Yeah, but anyway, so I got my stuff stashed in those two cabinets. I got the bunk. I brought sheets and a blanket, so I made up the bed.
And a pillow.
And a pillow, but I also brought a sleeping bag. So when I use the bottom bunk when the truck's moving, I'm not tearing all my sheets off and making his bed. I just flop there in a sleeping bag. So for the... Oh, and he showed me stuff like, here's how you turn on the lights back here in the sleeper, and here's how we do this and that. It was pretty quick.
So he gave you a tour when you first got there then?
Yeah.
He got kind of a tour?
Yeah. And some basic instructions.
Like what?
So,
what kind of basic instructions?
Like, you sleep in the top bunk, you sleep in the bottom one if the truck's moving. Here's the ladder to get up there, but when we're not using it, we put it here. And, he doesn't have... the truck doesn't have a fridge or a big cooler or anything like that. His thing is he brings food from home for a few days in like a little camping cooler, and he's got this 12-volt oven that will warm things up. So that's his kitchen setup, basically.
Okay, that's it.
And and he doesn't go to grocery stores or stop at Walmarts and stuff like that. It's always truck stops. So when he runs out of his food, he goes in there and he gets a hot dog or a hamburger and but he's not a big eater. He doesn't eat like 3 squares a day.
Unlike you.
No.
You're like the polar opposite of that.
As soon as I get out of bed, I start making some oatmeal and eat some fruit, and I'll have a coconut water or some energy drink or something. And then by lunchtime, I'm looking for something else, you know.
Wait, not an energy drink. Not a Red Bull or something.
No, it's like greens, pond scum, algae. And,
that kind of energy. Deliciousness.
Yeah, or electrolyte packs or stuff like that.
Yeah, so it was really good you brought food along then. Because you didn't know if he was going to be stopping at grocery stores or not.
I had no idea, so yeah, if I hadn't brought food, it would have been Arby's and Subway and whatever's at the truck stop. The truck stops don't... You know, when I grew up, the truck stops had big diners and nice, trucker food, but you'd sit down and eat a meal, like liver and onions or steak or, you know what I mean?
Meatloaf.
Now it's all fast food. It's like, here's an Arby's, you can get a hamburger and fries. Here's a McDonald's at this truck stop. So I've been looking for liver and onions because I want it once a week. And so the first shutdown we had, I had to Google, find a restaurant nearby and walk about 1.5 miles, sit down, have my liver and onions dinner, and walk all the way back to the truck.
Kevin loves liver and onions, people. So at least once a week. Don't get freaked out if you're not a lover of liver. I know that's
it's hard to find.
People.
It's hard to find. Some of the truck stops will have Denny's, and Denny's doesn't do liver and onions anymore. They took it off their menu.
And you found one where they used to have it, but they stopped about a year ago because I guess it wasn't a very popular item anymore.
Right. So
anyway, but back to the training.
It's getting pretty rare. Anyway,
so
first
then
day one,
or told you
Day one told me stuff. I set it. I made my bed. I stashed all my gear and everything, and then said goodbye to Tanya. She took off in the car.
Kiss.
And then we sat there for like 2 hours, and he gave me a long talk about, here's how things happen, here's how it works, and here's what we're gonna do, and we sat there for a couple hours.
Yeah, but that's what we're interested in hearing. Like, what kind of stuff? Like,
for the first 5 days, like the first day, I watched, and we had a really short run. We picked up, we got a load. After the talk, he said, "Okay, let's see if we got a load." Yep, we got a load. It's 9 miles from here. Pick up this load and drive it 9 miles, and then see what's next. So we picked up our load, and I saw how he's coupling, and so I helped. I always get out of the truck and help, even if I'm asleep and I know we're going to pick up a trailer or something. I get out of the truck and I help every time because I want to see how it's done and be there. So we hooked up a trailer. We drove 9 miles. We get there, and it's a place where you have to have where you go with an appointment. So if it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and your appointment's at 2, they make you wait. And then the other thing was, it was a live load, and that means even after they let you in, you pull up to a dock with your doors open, and there's a flashing green light next to the dock, and then you sit there, and then you feel them start to unload you. You're bumping and shaking and all this stuff, and the light is red. So don't move your truck when that light's red. They don't want to be like falling out or you're driving away with a forklift in there. So now they're unloading, and then the light turns green. Now you can move forward, close your doors, and head out.
You showed up with an empty trailer. Were they loading you or unloading you?
We were unloading.
Oh, you were unloading.
So we picked up a trailer, took it there, drove 9 miles, took it there, sat for almost an hour. Then they let us into the dock, sat there for more than an hour. They finally started unloading, and then they were done, and then we could pull out and leave. So now we're looking at the time, and we got the next load, but it was like really late in the day, and we were supposed to drive north, and it was snowing up in Flagstaff or something. So he decided that we would just go back to the terminal, stay there for the night, and then pick up our load and take off the next day.
So Kevin's first night out as a trucker.
We stayed in the terminal
at Phoenix,
where we started. We went 9 miles, came back 9 miles, and camped for the night.
Yeah, so 20 minutes away from the RV, where I was sleeping in the big empty lonely bed all by myself.
Yeah, Tanya's at home and I'm sleeping in the truck.
20 minutes away.
And then we got up pretty early the next morning and headed out. I made my oatmeal, and I brought along a bowl, and I ate that real quick and brushed my teeth and everything. Got back in the truck. He says, "Okay, let's go." Now, day one, I watched him, how he shifted, how he was using the brakes, turn signals, mirrors, seat adjustments, and all that. You got the air seat, so you got to set your height, your distance, and everything.
Bouncy.
And then he says, for the next 5 days, you're driving. So just like that, I'm not observing anymore. Now he's sitting there observing me.
Yeah, but you only observed him for 9 miles.
Yeah.
Well, 9 miles there and 9 miles
back.
And
the first leg, the load we get was from Phoenix all the way to Hagerstown, Maryland. So that's, I can't remember the mileage.
Far.
Almost 2,000 miles.
Right across
2,100 was our first load, 2,100 miles.
Yeah.
The first real load. And I drove it all the way there. So
maximum 10 hours a day.
For the first 5 days, you're driving.
Yeah.
And he's observing. And the first thing we did, going up to Flagstaff, you're going up from 1,000 feet to 8,000 feet elevation, back down to 7,000. So you're mountain driving. So I'm like learning the engine brakes and trying to work it with the cruise control, and it was not bad. I was going slow, but I wasn't really sure how this truck would work with 23,000 pounds behind me, how I would get it down hills and how I would climb hills. So I wasn't doing the speed limit, but I was in control all the time. I felt good because I didn't feel like, oh my God, there's a turn coming up. Are we gonna make it? Are we gonna fly off this cliff? And the truck's chugging up these hills, and I'm figuring out how to do it all, And I felt good. I felt like I got that part down pretty good, and it was the first day doing mountains.
And can I just say, I was really happy when the night before he said, I don't want you to have your first driving experience in this truck being at night up the road to Flagstaff, which is a tough road. It's windy and it's up and down, and so I it made me feel comfortable with that particular trainer because he was realistic and didn't do something that would have been, I don't know if dangerous is the right word,
could have been. He doesn't know my experience or knowledge or anything, and it could have been,
So to me, it was reassuring that he said, "Let's not go at night as your first experience."
Yeah, I spent a month in truck driving school, and the last 3 weeks was parking maneuvers, and I got to drive the truck like 6 times on the street. So I'd never used the engine brake or the cruise control, and it was a manual transmission. So this truck with the trainer was something totally different. Yeah. And on the highway, climbing mountains and using the cruise and using the engine brake was all, but it was good. I knew the theory, and I knew basically what I had to do, and he didn't say a word. I did everything, and if I would have gotten in trouble, he would have spoken up and said, you got to do this or do that. So I think I did it right. And then,
plus it was, since you're talking about difference in the truck, now you're in an automatic. All your training was on a manual. Now you're actually in an automatic truck, which probably makes it a lot easier.
It took like 50% of the stress factor out of it. Instead of watching your RPMs and trying to shift at the right second, and while you're watching everything around you and downshifting, you got to do it just right and hit those RPMs and slip it in, and range selectors up and down. 50% of the stress factor was gone.
Nice.
It was just steer, watch your mirrors, watch your speed.
Nice.
Right. Read your signs. You're not missing signs because you're grinding something and cursing and then stalling and no. So much easier.
That's great.
Yeah.
And most companies, we mentioned this in the other videos, most companies now have
large companies buy automatics, and the trainer was telling me he started out on a manual, did his training, did his first couple of trucks were manuals, and he'll never go back. He's interviewed with other companies offering good money and good this and good that, and then he says, well, what are the trucks? They say manual. He says, no thanks. He chooses not to go back to a manual.
Yeah.
That says something for a guy with his experience.
Yeah.
And he's very professional, and he's not, The other thing I found about this guy is he doesn't yell, he doesn't get mad, he doesn't get excited, he doesn't make you feel nervous at any time, he's always supportive. He's always like, thank you for driving, you know, that was a good backing maneuver, thank you so much, you know, like
Nice.
I took a lot of stress out of his life by doing things right.
Yeah, great.
You know, and he's glad for it.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel it like in school, in truck driving school, there were times when people were yelling, people were like slamming stuff, people were like calling, you know, cursing and stuff. None of that. This is totally peaceful, happy experience. You can concentrate on what you're doing. You're not worried about pissing somebody off or feeling shame about what you're doing or anything.
That's great.
So it's
great.
really good.
So he's
really,
a good
really
trainer.
Good. Yep, he's excellent.
Awesome.
And he's
shout out to KK.
Yeah, he's always telling you stories. You're just driving along. He goes, yeah, you see this? I stayed at this truck stop once, and here's what happened, and here's what I learned here, and you know, oh, on this highway, I've been on this highway many times. Watch out for snow here. Look where the sign says, here's where you chain up. Lots of and when there's no snow, guys stay here for the night because it's on the side of the road and it's not a truck stop or anything. But if you're tired and you got to stop, no problem. You know,
that's allowed.
When it's snowing,
it's not allowed,
and you got to chain up, you got 30 minutes to chain up and get out. They don't want you staying any more than 30 minutes because the next guy's got to chain up too.
Right. But in the summertime,
in the summer, I saw trucks, stuff like that. So I learned, you know, he's telling a lot of stories, teaching you a lot of stuff.
Little tricks and insights.
Yeah, those first 5 days, I was doing, the first day I think was only like 450 miles, and after that I was doing 600, 620, 640 a day, and I thought, wow, that's pretty good. He said, yeah, you know, 650 to 730 is more than possible when you're on a long run like this and you put in the 10-hour day driving. He says, you know, if you get tired, stop by all means. You know, there's no pressure to go. Take your half-hour break. The clock is there telling you, you know, how many hours you have left and everything. It's easy to check, but if you're tired, stop anytime you want. It's not about getting it through there. It's about doing it safe and not making stupid mistakes or accidents because you're so tired, but you're still pushing yourself.
Right.
So do it smart. Yeah, no pressure at all. And I pushed myself. You know,
that's just who you are.
Yeah, but I was also aware if I got really tired, I knew I was going to make a mistake. So I was very conscious of that, and I did a lot to try and stay focused and stay present, and don't like daydream or drift off just because you're on a long straight stretch, you know, through the desert for 4 hours. Don't like go off somewhere else. Stay there. Read the signs.
Be present.
Look at the pavement. Look at your speed. You got in cruise control, great. And you're coming up behind another guy, you know, you got to check all that out. So I did a couple of long days. The one day I hit 725 miles.
Wow.
I was like, hey, look at this. I'm telling him, look at this. He's like, yeah, I told you it was possible. And it was a Sunday, driving through the Midwest, so no mountains, perfect weather, no traffic on Sunday, through Oklahoma, Missouri, and on into Illinois. It was just, I slowed down for construction once, where the road narrowed, and I got kind of slowed down to a walking speed for about 5 minutes. And other than that, it was full blast the whole day. 725 miles. Took the half-hour break. Everything, you know, on the up and up. I wasn't cheating or nothing like that. 725 miles. Holy cow! In my first week.
And you didn't feel totally worn out and exhausted?
No, I felt great at the end. It beats the hell out of working at Amazon, standing on your feet for 10 hours or pushing a cart around for 10 hours. You're there with the steering wheel. One thing I noticed, I start to get a knot back here, and then I start to get a knot here in my shoulders. There's something about my left side, and I'm not. The first day I was up here at 10 and 2 and sitting up really high, but it's not like the motorhome windshield, which is almost 6 feet tall, and you've got an unobstructed huge view. In the truck, it's like a car windshield. It's only like that. And there's the forward-facing camera right in the middle of it. So if you want to see something there, you got to kind of duck under it. And when you're sitting high, you know, the windshield stops about here. So if you're reading signs, you're constantly ducking down and checking. So I noticed I was doing this half the time, trying to see stuff. And so the next day, I told him it's starting to get, you know, painful and knots and stuff. He said, bring the steering wheel closer. Don't be like this. Be like this.
Right.
And he sits up high and real close to the steering wheel. So I tried that the second day, And the next day, I dropped that seat down about 3-4 inches, moved it back a couple of clicks, and reclined it a bit, got into a more relaxed position with my hands close to me with the wheel, and it was pretty good after that. At about the 8-9 hour mark in the day, I'd start to get a little knotted and tense here, and I could shake it or stretch it out a bit. But it got better. Instead of being in my tense RV driving position like this, I was more like, yeah, or just
tense RV driving.
When
I
I drive,
you were relaxed when you drive Dusty.
Well, when I drive Dusty, the seat is perfectly upright, not reclined. It's forward, and I'm at 10 and 2, and because I like that field of view, and
yes.
I think I can see better. But in the truck, you can't. When you're up like that, you can't see much because the windshield is low, and you got that forward-facing camera. So then once I got down and back, I could read signs easier. I could see my mirrors a little easier.
And I think he has his hands like down on 7 and 5 pretty much, right?
Yeah, he's way down on the wheel.
Did you try that?
I tried that, and I found the truck was drifting in the lane too much. I didn't have the same touch. So when I get to like, what would that be, 4 and 8, that's my spot. That's my sweet spot. And I can steer. And the other thing, he said after a couple of days, he said, I notice you are always 2 hands on the wheel. And that's from driving the motorhome white-knuckled half the time because it's the wind and, it wanders in the lane quite a bit. So with the truck, again, I'm like 2 hands on the wheel, and I'm very conscientious about trying to stay in the lane and not drift toward the lines or anything. And he said a lot of his students will be like one-handing it and one, like this, or one arm like up on the window, one-handing. Even if you're one hand, your other hand has to be really close. You hit a pothole or a rut or a groove in the pavement, and suddenly the truck is gone, and that one hand is not enough to hold it, to pull it back in fast. If the other hand is way over here, by the time you get on the wheel, you're off the road.
Oh, wow.
So, like, okay, you want to relax that hand for a minute?
Bonehead trucker!
You want to relax that hand for a minute? You want to, like, put it in your lap or keep it close? But don't be, like, out the window with your arm or something. And so, yeah, I've always got 2 hands on the wheel.
That's
and
good.
if I need to, like, shake one out or grab my drink or something, it's really quick.
So you just mentioned the difference between the truck and the RV. How does it feel in terms of control?
I feel more in control of the truck. The wheels are bigger. The suspension is built for something that size. I think the RV is underbuilt. I think the RV is on a heavy truck chassis. But once you build a house on top of that, you've added a lot of weight. So the suspension is at its limit, and the wheels are smaller, and so it tends to wander. And the wind hitting this motorhome really pushes it around. The truck, I had a couple experiences in 20-25 mile an hour winds with an empty trailer, and I was tense. I was holding it. The same wind with 20,000 pounds in the trailer, the nose of the truck where the steering wheels are would get pushed a little bit, but the trailer does not
solid
move. It don't go nowhere.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so
because that's what I find stressful when we drive in the motorhome, and we actually added some suspension.
Yeah, we beefed up the suspension and the steering, stabilizing and stuff like that.
It did make it a little more solid, but I definitely feel, like it can drift easily and quickly.
Yeah, the truck not so much so.
That's great.
It's
that's
handles
good.
better. It's got more control.
Like sucked to the road. Like
it's
more
just
solid,
heavy, solid. And
yeah.
you can tell the difference on the back of the truck when you've got a heavy trailer or a light trailer. You can really feel the difference.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So anyway, the first week I drove the truck.
And he didn't drive it other than that first day.
The first day it was 18 miles and kind of demonstrating, and I'm watching very carefully. And the next 5 days I drove it and got very little instruction, like you need to do this more or do that or change this or something. So I guess I learned pretty good in school. And he said, and that's what he said. I think your experience driving the motorhome really set you up for this.
That's great.
Yeah, because I learned to check mirrors very often because you don't have that one in the car where you can see out the back.
Yeah.
You don't know if somebody sneaks in behind you and then suddenly is trying to pass you when just as you're about to do a lane change. So you got to really watch. And in the first day we had the motorhome, the salesman told me, check the fisheye mirrors underneath, not the big mirrors, but the fisheyes will show you the lines of the lane to make sure you're tracking nice in your lane, you're not drifting over the lines. So in the truck, you've got the fender fisheye mirrors, and I watch those all the time to see that I'm staying in the lane. Plus, the truck has lane deviation warning. If you do go over the line, it goes really loud. And if your partner's sleeping, you don't want to wake them up with that every 5 minutes. You're really going to watch your lane. The truck has, what's it called? The cruise control, ACC, adaptive cruise control. So there's a radar on the front bumper that reads forward. So if you're coming up behind another vehicle, the dashboard will say he's 500 feet away, he's 389 feet away. When it gets down to about 350, the truck will slow down by itself so you don't get any closer to that guy.
Wow.
So adaptive cruise control keeps you from getting too close. Now if you're driving along and somebody zips in front of you and it's like 100 feet, it doesn't instantly slow you down. It's waiting and it's seeing that vehicle is pulling away from you, so you maintain your speed for a while. But if after a certain amount of time he's still only 180 feet away, it's going to start slowing you down. So it's not instant. And if you're approaching somebody and catching up to them, it'll start slowing you down until you match their speed. So
and it has sorry, go ahead.
So that's a safe feature, and it's not going to allow you to tailgate or anything like that. And if you do get close, like you take it out of cruise control and you catch up to somebody, you get a big flashy warning, distance too close, and if you're really close, it's like collision imminent. Oh my God.
Does it beep or something?
Yeah, it beeps and it flashes and everything. And if that collision imminent comes up, it will send a message to the company with video footage. And that also includes RPM, speed, braking, a lot of features of what's going on in the truck at the time. And if that happens a lot, you might get a call saying, are you guys okay? It seems like you had a few incidents yesterday. They're not blasting you. That's the thing he said about it. They call and see that you're okay and that nothing bad is happening to you. They're not calling to say, hey, you're driving bad, cut it out. It's not like that. So it's pretty good.
Okay. And I was going to say they have a maximum speed as well, right?
That's what I was getting to. If you got your foot on the pedal, you hit 65 miles an hour, the truck is not going any faster than that. I can inch it up if I'm going downhill and there's a lot of weight in the back, but with a light load, it'll keep doing 65 down the hill.
Really?
It doesn't, unless it's really steep. But with a heavy load, you start accelerating pretty quick.
But the brakes come on to actually slow you down and keep you at 65. Like
I'm saying if you got your foot on the pedal and you're going level, you get to 65, the engine does not go any faster. You will not pass 65 miles an hour. If I'm going down a hill and coasting and keep my foot on the pedal, it'll pick up speed, but the truck won't slow itself down. You're the one controlling the speed. And when you're in cruise control and it's at a set speed, and you start going down the hill, the truck will engage the engine brake. There's settings. There's parameters of +5, so 5 miles above the speed limit. It'll engage the engine brake and try to slow the truck down. And it's starting to pull you back from that speed. And if it's still fast, it'll gear down. It'll go from 12th gear to 11th. And if you're still going too fast, it'll go down to 10th gear. And then the truck is screaming and you start applying the foot brake because the engine's revving so high, and that's not good for the engine.
But that only happens if it's in
cruise control.
Oh,
and the other thing about that is you're in cruise control, and if you know there's a steep hill coming, you get signs warning you about steep grades. Set your cruise control, like you might even select a lower speed, like instead of 65, you bring it down to 55 or 60 because it's a really long, steep hill. Set your cruise at a lower speed and engage the engine brake. And then as you're going down the hill, it's engine braking, and when it climbs up, it will engage a stronger engine brake setting and more. But the thing about the way you've set that now, you can apply the foot brake, and when, to help slow it down, when you release the foot brake, it'll still be in cruise control. If you don't do it that way, just set the cruise control, leave the engine brake alone. every time you step on the brake, it disengages the cruise control. So when you take your foot off the brake, it starts going faster and faster because you got to reset the cruise control real quick. So you set the cruise, set the engine brake. And then when you're foot braking, it stays in cruise control mode. So you got to remember that.
Yeah, that's a good insight. Thank you, Kevin.
But the other thing about the cruise control now is you can get it up to 68 miles an hour in cruise control. So you can do better than 65 if you're in cruise and you hit the plus button.
Oh, the plus button.
It goes from 65 to 68. So now you get a little more speed out of the truck, which is good on a long run. The bad part of that is you pull up, you get closer to a vehicle in front of you, and you're still like 300 feet away, and your truck starts slowing down because it sees that next vehicle. And if it's a truck, looking at the back of a dry van, it'll slow you down at more than 300 feet. Now you're like 320 feet away from this guy. If it's a car, you'll get closer to about 250 feet. So it's the picture the radar sees. But now you come up behind a truck, and he's doing 66 miles per hour. So you slow down to 66. No more 68. I want to pass this guy. You're waiting, and you're not going to get close to him and then pull out and pass because you're in cruise control, and the truck radar won't let you get closer. So you're checking your mirror for a really long break in the next lane. You pull out and hit that plus button, and you get up to 68. Now you're doing 68, and he's doing 66. And you look at the odometer, and you're checking your mirrors, because if a car comes up behind you, he doesn't realize you're trying to pass this guy. It looks like you're just sitting in that lane, because it takes you 2 miles to catch up to him, and another mile to get ahead of him. And if a car comes up, he's like, dude, what are you doing blocking the lane? Get out of the way, you know?
Right.
'Cause it takes you so long to get to close that 300 feet and get another 100 so you can get ahead of him.
Right.
So a lot of times I've gotten up close and I'm like, no, there's like 3 cars behind me. One of them's going to try to pass me on the right. I better get back behind him. Get behind him. You slow right down. Now we're down 300 feet away again. We're only doing 66.
And that's where we have seen in other videos that what they kind of point out is that if you are the trucker in the right lane, that, you know, it would be very kind of you if you see another truck trying to pass you in this very slow but steady manner,
with
that
the governor,
that you slow down and let him cut in front of you, because it's apparent he's going to be going slightly faster than you, but don't make him take 5 minutes to pass you.
It's not
slow
safe.
down, let them in.
Here's the other thing we get when the truck is in cruise control and starts to go down a hill. It switches to E-coast. It actually takes the transmission into neutral and drops the idle of the engine, so you're just gliding down a hill. Now, what if you're trying to pass somebody? Because it doesn't hold the speed. If you're at 68 and it goes into coast, the truck starts slowing down in a lot of cases, because it's not a long, like a steep grade. If it's just like a little dip like this, suddenly the thing is disengaged. You're doing 68. You're neck and neck with this other guy. You're about to pass him. And the truck goes, we're going to rest now. Everything's calm. You start doing 67. You're doing 65. You get to 64. Now he's passing you, and you're the guy who's supposed to be passing him. You're like, come on, truck. Don't give up now. We're almost passing. And then you come to a slight rise. The thing powers up again to 68. And now you're catching up to that guy again. You're about to pass him, and you're looking at all the cars behind you, like shaking their fists. Like, there's got to be a better way to do this. I mean, there should be an option where you can just like floor it and pass somebody and get it done, you know?
Yeah.
But sitting in that lane, the battle of the governors, 2 trucks trying to outdo their governors.
Yeah, that
and
1 mile an hour extra.
If he's loaded to 40,000 pounds and I've got to load 20,000 pounds, when I'm going uphill, I'm keeping it fast and he's slowing down because he's so heavy. Then we get to the top. And now
he goes faster.
His 40,000 pounds is pushing him. He's like, his governor doesn't mean nothing. He's doing 75 because his 40,000 pounds is driving. And my engine cuts out and goes into E-coast, and I'm like, gliding down this hill at 64. So you got to plan your passing well in advance and think, we're going uphill in about a mile, so that's when I'm going to pass him, you know. And,
okay, but truthfully, now we're off. This could have been a whole separate video.
There's all the stuff I learned in that first
That's
5
all
days
in the first 5 days.
Driving 600 miles a day, how to manage the truck, how to manage the speed, and
but
the
that
cruise
could have been
control.
another video. I'll have to put two two titles in this video. So let's finish up just with your experience in terms of it being your first week out
Sure.
with the trainer.
First week, first day, real short run. Second day, 2,000 miles. Took us like three and a half days to get over there. Maryland, yeah. And then we started team driving. So that's the next step of the time
and we'll
with the
do a
trainer.
separate video for that.
Yeah.
So the very first week, only Kevin, other than the very first day when
First
you
day
got to watch
observation.
KK on 18 miles.
Yeah.
The second day, for 5 days, you were the only one driving that
Yeah.
truck. So it was almost like you had your own truck, but you had
Somebody
your trainer there
mentoring
to
me
teach
there.
you things. Yeah. Okay, so the next video is going to be about week 2 and 3, which is when actually you guys you were team driving, which is a whole different experience.
Yeah.
So we'll do a separate video on that. In the meantime, basically conclusion, you learned a lot. Your trainer is great. You're happy with your trainer because that was a trepidation that we had. We'd
Yeah.
seen a lot of videos about people like, I hate my trainer and I got off the truck, or I got kicked off the truck or whatever.
Yeah.
And you guys are having a good time out there together. So that is awesome. And you learned a lot, certainly about your not autopilot.
Cruise control. Adaptive cruise control.
Adaptive cruise control.
Yeah, those first few days driving across the country was a really good learning experience, and it was an enjoyable experience. And
Yeah.
it was at no time did I feel like scared or nervous or my life was in danger.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great. And the weather was good those first 5 days. I know we got weather things to talk about.
Weather's for this whole experience. I've had 99% good weather.
Right, but you've
Yeah.
done some weather. Was that in your first week or week 2 and 3? When did you have the
No,
snow and the thunderstorms and stuff and almost the tornadoes?
So
Was that in the first week?
The second week on the Saturday coming.
Okay,
through.
okay.
Yeah.
Save it for the next one then. But it wasn't in the first week. We
Yeah,
didn't
no,
we
the
didn't
first-
forget to talk about it.
First week was very pleasant, and as the only driver, of course, every night we'd be stopped somewhere and climb into my bunk and get a good night's sleep,
Mhm.
and get up and eat my oatmeal
Yeah.
and
Some routine.
good
and some-
routine, good downtime every day.
Yeah. Okay,
So that was great.
so listen, if you want to hear about the next 2 weeks, join us in the next video.
Oh boy.
And if you like this one, if you got something out of this, if we're bringing you value, please give us the thumbs up, questions and comments below. And yeah, hey, if you want to keep up with us and join us on this journey, please press that subscribe button. You're also helping us out by doing that. And that's it from Kevin and Tanya with love. Bye. You and the Duke.